scramble. So we'll bring you that. Do stay with us and join us again in just a couple of minutes.
Leaders are remembered, be they loved or feared. But what of the men and women whose hands build their monuments and whose blood stains their battlefields? People in power at this time on AlJazeera.
What Gaddafi has done, he dismantled or destroyed the system in the country.
As chaos and violence sweep across Libya,
they're living through fear, they're living through a nightmare.
They're using ammunition, live ammunition.
AlJazeera hears from those who have lived in fear of Gaddafi's regime.
We don't want him to leave. We want to arrest him. 42 years is too much.
Libya, a state of terror, at this time on AlJazeera.
Welcome to Al Jazeera. I'm Lauren Taylor. These are the top stories. Libyans in Nalut say pro-Gaddafi paramilitaries are on the outskirts of the city and reportedly armed with anti-aircraft machine guns. Residents of Nalut fear there may be renewed attempts to storm the city. There have been skirmishes on the Tunisia-Libya border between people fleeing Libya and border guards. Tunisian security forces have been overwhelmed by the number of people trying to cross into the country at Ras Ajdir. And Yemen's President Ali Abdullah Saleh has blamed Israel and the United States for the unrest in his country and the Arab world. Meanwhile, a senior Yemeni cleric has become the latest high-profile leader to join the anti-government movement. Libya's leader Muammar Gaddafi is under mounting pressure from the international community and his own people, but he shows no sign of buckling. Large swathes of the country are now in opposition hands, but there are fears over Gaddafi's next move. Tony Bertley joins us now live from Benghazi in eastern Libya. So Tony, give us a flavour of what it feels like to be in Benghazi now.
Well, it's like a huge carnival. It's been going on for 3 or 4 days. It's a tremendous mood of jubilation that still spills over on the streets every single day. I'm now standing in the heart, if you like, of the revolution. This is where it all really began. This is where they're celebrating everything. We're seeing, tanks in one place where children are on. It's been taken from the army. We're seeing armoured vehicles. We're seeing behind me the law courts, and this is where people have had their demonstrations and their speeches and rallying the people. It's also where they've been showing pictures of the people who've died in the various uprisings in Benghazi. This is not the first one. 1996 was a big one for them. 1,200 people were killed. So, Benghazi has a long line of people who've stood up to this regime and paid the price. So we're seeing that. But it's a great mood here. But I have to say there's a touch of apprehension because although Gaddafi's ground forces perhaps can't launch a direct attack on here too easily because they're something like 600 kilometers away, the Air Force is another matter. We don't know how much he still has at his disposal, but they could inflict some damage. So there's an air of apprehension here still.
And earlier, Tony, you were mentioning that the forces there are kind of enthusiastic, if not particularly well equipped. Do they have much at their disposal to counter any kind of efforts from Gaddafi to change the position there?
Well, normally every sort of town and settlement has some anti-aircraft weapons which they've taken from the army, and they seem to have ammunition for these. I don't know the extent of their stocks. I don't know if they've got other weapons that are kept in barracks or anything. It just seems very basic at the moment, not enough to go forward for an attack, for example, that some people are suggesting they may do it in the future, but certainly perhaps enough for defence. But as I say, we don't know what Gaddafi's capability remains in the air, so that is a bit of an unknown quandary.
Is the appetite there more for kind of letting events unfold and letting Gaddafi's system crumble on its own, or for being involved and trying to kind of give him the final push, if you like?
Very difficult to hear you, Lawrence. So there's a very lot of excitable people here, but what they're hoping here is Gaddafi will go peacefully. He will finally see the writing is literally on the wall, game is over, and he will go and do some kind of deal. I think militarily it's going to be very difficult. You've got basically a ragtag army with very sort of basic weapons, and to go 800, 1,000 kilometers and then engage his elite forces who are very well trained, very well armed, it's asking a lot, and we could see a lot of bloodshed. So I'm thinking everybody is hoping for a peaceful end game to this.
And Tony, we've seen the international moves to start to try to isolate, as they put it, Gaddafi further. What are people there saying to you as to what they want the international community to do?
I think the most thing is they want to see an air exclusion zone set up, so that threat from the air that I just talked about is eliminated. I think they want more pressure, not just from the international community, but specifically from the Arab League, the Arab nations, because that will bring, I think, probably the final curtain for Gaddafi. He's got nowhere to go after that. And then that's it, this general squeeze. But they all say they don't want foreign intervention in terms of military intervention and troops on the ground. They don't want to see Afghanistan or Iraq here. They don't want American forces coming on the ground. Absolutely not. I think also that they think that if there's not a peaceful resolution, if not enough international pressure is brought to bear, that they will then have to do it themselves. And that's what they're saying. But I think that's the last step for them. I think the military option is the last step, but of course, as we're hearing every day, there are pockets of anti-Gaddafi people fighting every single day, and people are still dying, so people are going to weigh up. I think they've got to get a structure first, an organisation, then move forward to the next step.
OK, Tony Boatley, thank you very much indeed for giving us the picture there from Benghazi in eastern Libya. Well, as we heard earlier, pro-Gaddafi forces appear to be preparing for an attack on the town of Nalut in western Libya. A resident who we're calling Adel, rather than give his real name, described the situation there for us.
Last night, before sunset, about 25 armed cars tried to enter into the vicinity of the town, Nalut, and controlled one of the entrances. We had to pull back. Where we were standing or taking guards of the entrance of the town and helping journalists and other medical aid as well as food aid and supplies into the city. And we heard the news that the tanks and other armed vehicles, that was not true at the time. It was not a very large-sized force.
Well, people in AlJazeera, close to the capital, Tripoli, have successfully fought off attempts by Gaddafi forces to retake the town. Earlier, a resident there told us that they're now worried that their food supplies are being cut off.
Since yesterday, the situation is quiet. Yesterday morning, it's quiet. People are satisfied from the steps we are doing. We are talking even about the post-Al-Gaddafi period, after Al-Gaddafi period. Last night at 8 evening, there are two clashes in the east and the west of Zawiya, the gates to Zawiya. The center of Zawiya, the area of Zawiya is already occupied by our people, by the people. Okay, two clashes, one in to the east and one to the west. There are two groups of Gaddafi militia trying to prevent other people from coming to the Zawiya city.